My sister's grades are strange. If I get 600 points, she'd get 610 points, so I'd push myself to get 610 points. Then she'd immediately get 620. Her score would always be precisely 10 points higher than mine. However, if I ever take a day off and miss an exam, my sister's grades instantly become a complete disaster. And with that, my suspicion was confirmed. My sister's grades are tied to mine. Based on this, a crazy plan started to form in my mind. If I score over 740 on the college entrance exam, what would happen then? In the time leading up to the exam, I was like an ascetic monk. My sister, on the other hand, was a hedonist. She counted on me to carry her. She became unbelievably arrogant, even giving up on her studies entirely. She was always out fooling around with friends, and every time she got caught, she'd look completely annoyed. My sister rolled her eyes. She slammed her phone down on the table. Are you guys ever going to stop nagging? Don't worry, the top score on the exam is definitely going to be mine. And I never let her down. In every mock exam, I made sure to secure her spot as number 1 in our grade. I wanted her to get lost in that false sense of achievement, while I, in the shadows, was getting closer and closer to 741 points. The second semester of senior year felt like a dull knife, slicing away at my nerves. I woke up at 5 in the morning every day, and went to bed at midnight. In between, aside from eating or using the restroom, I was grinding through practice questions. I locked myself in that small room that never saw sunlight, operating with the precision of a tireless machine. My sister's room was right next door. From time to time, I could hear her laughing on video calls with her friends, or her dramatic gasps while watching some TV show. Sometimes she'd intentionally turn the volume way up, as if she were showing off how carefree she could be. I didn't care. I had learned long ago to block out all the noise. There was only one number cycling in my mind: 741 points. That number was like a nail driven into my heart. Whenever I felt like giving up, I would just press down on it. The pain kept me sharp. In March, Lin Xiaoxiao started coming into my room more frequently. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured she was just looking for something. But then I noticed something wasn't right. The way she looked at me had changed. It was full of scrutiny, like she was testing me. One time, I was working on a challenging final problem for math when she pushed the door open. She stood behind me, staring at my scratch paper for a long time. "Hey, bro, how come you're studying so hard lately?" I didn't even look up and just kept writing. "It's nothing. The big exam is coming up, you know. How could I not be studying hard?" Lin Xiaoxiao leaned in closer, trying to see what I was writing. "But you've never been this dedicated before." My heart skipped a beat, but I didn't let it show on my face. I intentionally let out a sigh and put down my pen, pretending to be exhausted. What choice do I have? Mom and Dad are forcing me. They said if I don't get into a 985 university, they'll cut off my allowance. What am I supposed to do? Lin Xiaoxiao's expression relaxed, and a smirk even appeared on her face. You, getting into a 985? She turned and walked away. But before leaving, she couldn't resist getting one last jab in. How exhausting. The top spot will be mine in the end, anyway. I watched her back and said nothing. Only after the door was closed did I pick up my pen again. The corners of my mouth turned up slightly. Good, keep looking down on me. The more you underestimate me, the safer I'll be. But Lin Xiaoxiao's suspicion wasn't completely gone. In the following days, she began to, both openly and secretly, probe my study progress. She'd ask which subject I found hardest, and what my scores were on the mock exams. Sometimes, she would deliberately say discouraging things in front of me, trying to shake my confidence. I played along with her games. In every mock exam, I deliberately controlled my score and my grade rank so I wouldn't seem too outstanding. A rank of 65. I kept myself in the top 5 of the grade, so it wouldn't be too eye-catching or make her suspicious. I kept my real killer moves hidden deep inside. Those most difficult types of problems, those trickiest techniques, I only practiced them alone, late at night. When I was done, I'd tear up the scratch paper and flush it down the toilet, leaving not a single trace. One evening, I was working on competition-level problems when I suddenly heard a noise from the living room. It was Mother and Lin Xiaoxiao talking. I quietly cracked my door open to eavesdrop. "Xiaoxiao, has your brother been pushing himself too hard lately? I see him shut in his room all day. He doesn't even come out for meals." Lin Xiaoxiao laughed dismissively. "Mom, what are you worried about? No matter how hard he tries, How far can he really get? Anyway, whatever he scores, I can score 10 points higher. The harder he works, the higher my score will be, right? Yes, my daughter is so smart. Then just let him work himself to death. He's just paving the way for you anyway, haha. Listening to their words, I clenched my fists. My fingernails dug into my palms, but on the surface, I remained calm. I gently closed the door and continued with my problems. One night in April, I was in my room working on problems as usual. Suddenly, I heard a faint noise outside my door. I pricked up my ears and listened carefully. It was the sound of footsteps. Very light, as if afraid of being discovered. Then came the sound of the doorknob turning. Very slowly, I understood in an instant. She was spying on me. I didn't turn around. I continued to pretend I was focused on my work, but in reality, I had already swapped the test paper in my hand for a sheet of basic problems. The truly difficult materials had long been locked away in my drawer. In the very back, the door opened a tiny crack. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw half of Lin Xiaoxiao's face. She was looking at the things on my desk. I deliberately sighed and muttered to myself, how did I get this wrong again? This is too hard. Then I closed my notebook and laid my head on the desk, pretending to rest. The crack in the door quietly closed. The footsteps faded into the distance. I sat up straight and let out a cold laugh. Lin Xiaoxiao, the more you guard against me, the more it proves how insecure you are. You know that better than anyone. Those scores aren't yours. You're just a parasite. Without me, you're nothing. In the May mock exam, I scored 695. Lin Xiaoxiao got 705, first in the entire school, top of her grade. The day the results came out, she celebrated wildly at home. My parents fussed over her, praising her for bringing honor to the Lin family. The dining table was filled with all her favorite dishes. I sat in the corner, quietly eating my food. Like an invisible person, my father put down his chopsticks. Looking at Lin Xiaoxiao with a face full of pride. Xiaoxiao, you did great this time. Keep it up, and you'll have the college entrance exam in the bag. My daughter is just so smart. Just look at whose genes she has, my mother chimed in. Her voice filled with unconcealed pride. Lin Xiaoxiao glanced at me smugly. A mocking smile playing on her lips. Bro, you need to work harder. Don't fall too far behind me. Otherwise, it'll be embarrassing for mom and dad. I grunted in response, didn't argue, and just kept eating. But inside, I was laughing coldly. Enjoy it while you can. This is your last moment in the spotlight. That night, I lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. My mind constantly replaying the 2 days of the college entrance exam. Envisioning everything that could happen. After the June college entrance exam arrived as scheduled, on the night of June 6th, Lin Xiaoxiao went out drinking with her friends. Saying it was an early celebration, not only did my mother not stop her, she even stuffed a wad of cash in her hand, saying, my daughter has worked so hard. Go relax a little. I watched this scene through the crack in my bedroom door. I didn't feel a single ripple of emotion in my heart, only a sense of irony. As for me, I went to bed at 8 o'clock that night, with my alarm set for 6 the next morning. Lying in bed, I was unusually calm. Like a swordsman waiting to draw his blade, all my forbearance would be rewarded tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up on time. I had a few quick bites of breakfast and then left. Mother was taking Lin Xiaoxiao to the exam site. To me, she just casually said, do well on your test. I nodded. I didn't say much more, thinking to myself, anyway, this is the last time. From now on, we'll go our separate ways. The exam was held in the school's old teaching building. I was assigned a seat by the window on the 3rd floor, where the sunlight could shine in perfectly. I sat down, arranged my stationery piece by piece, and took a deep breath. I closed my eyes and silently repeated in my mind, Lin Feng, you've waited 18 years for this day. Don't lose. The bell for the language exam rang. The moment I opened the test booklet, my mind was clearer than it had ever been. Every question felt as familiar as an old friend. I anticipated every trap in the reading comprehension sections. The essay topic was exactly the type one had practiced countless times. I wrote as if guided by inspiration. After finishing the language exam, I walked out of the classroom, and Lin Xiaoxiao immediately rushed over to block my way. She was wearing exquisite makeup, but there was a faint, imperceptible trace of panic in her eyes. She asked me how I did. I said, it was okay, I guess. Lin Xiaoxiao frowned and pressed, what does okay mean? How many multiple choice questions did you get wrong? Looking at him, I suddenly found it kind of funny. He was trying to confirm my score so he could estimate his own. I don't know, I haven't checked the answers. Lin Xiaoxiao pursed his lips. He wasn't too happy with my answer, but he didn't press any further. He turned and walked away. I watched his back. I thought to myself, what's your hurry? The results will be out tomorrow anyway. You'll have plenty to worry about then. Halfway through the math exam in the afternoon, something unexpected happened. My stomach was suddenly gripped by a sharp pain. Maybe it was something I ate in the morning, or maybe it was just too much stress. A cold sweat broke out instantly. I slumped over my desk for several seconds before I could recover. The proctor walked over and asked me in a low voice, "Student, are you all right? Do you need to go to the nurse's office?" I shook my head and said through gritted teeth, "I'm fine. Are you kidding me? I've waited 18 years for this one exam. Even if I die, I'm going to die working on this test paper." I pinched my thigh hard. The sharp pain made me temporarily forget the discomfort in my stomach. I continued with the test. For a moment, the numbers and formulas in front of me became a blur. But I forced myself to finish every single problem, running on pure muscle memory. For the final, most difficult question, I used 3 different methods to check my work. Only after confirming there were no mistakes did I put down my pen. When I walked out of the exam hall, I was on the verge of collapse. I found an empty corner and squatted down. It took me a long while to recover. Lin Xiaoxiao sent me a message asking how I did on the math exam. 123, I replied with one word. Normal. 123, he instantly sent back a smug emoji. 123, he clearly thought he had it in the bag again. I looked at that emoji, and just found it laughable. The ignorant are fearless. That's exactly the kind of person he is. The next day were the science comprehensive and English exams. I had mostly recovered. These 2 subjects are my strong suits. Especially the science comprehensive. Those big physics problems, the chemistry inference, the biology genetics, they were all types I had practiced countless times. I breezed through it, finishing with 20 minutes to spare for checking. I double-checked every single question twice to make sure there were no mistakes. And English was even easier. The graders would have a hard time not giving me a high score. After finishing the last exam, I walked out of the hall. I stood at the entrance of the academic building and looked up at the sky. The sunlight was glaring, but I didn't look away. I just stood there, letting it shine right on my face. 18 years, I've finally made it. Lin Xiaoxiao was the first to rush over and block my path. He was dressed especially brightly today. Like a proud peacock, his eyes gleaming with greed. He asked me how I did. Better than ever. Never been better in my life. Lin Xiaoxiao's eyes lit up instantly. It was as if he'd seen mountains of gold and silver. He turned and ran to find his parents to take the credit. "Mom, Dad, my big brother said he did extremely well, which means I must have done even better." Watching her joyful back, I smiled too. That was the smile of a hunter watching his prey fall into a trap. "Lin Xiaoxiao, do you know what you're like right now? Like a moth flying into a flame, thinking it's the sun." During the summer vacation after the college entrance exams, Lin Xiaoxiao completely let herself go. She puffed out her chest and promised our parents that she could rank in the top 10 in the province, and got a huge allowance in advance. Not only did she replace her phone and computer with top-of-the-line models, she also took the money our parents had painstakingly saved, and went out squandering it with a bunch of shady friends. Her social media was updated daily. It was all just eating, drinking, and partying. She had no idea what disaster was coming for her. One night, I was scrolling and saw a post she made. It was a photo of her eating at a fancy restaurant, with the caption, "The future top scorer, celebrating in advance." A bunch of people liked and commented below it, "Treat us." And "Wow, Xiao, you're amazing. Treat us to a meal." And "Yeah, treat us." As I looked at those comments, I just found it all absurd. Meanwhile, I wanted to go back to the countryside to see my grandpa. I asked our parents for the travel fare, but before I could even finish my sentence, my mother shut me down. She didn't even bother to raise an eyelid. Her tone was completely dismissive. "See him for what? There's no money in the house. Can't you see Xiao needs money?" Looking at her self-righteous face, I felt a wave of disgust. For me, they wouldn't spare a dime. For Lin Xiao, they spent money like water. "These are my parents." My father was sitting on the sofa watching TV. Without even turning his head, he added, "If you want to go, then figure it out yourself. Don't count on the family." I didn't say anything more. I just turned around and went back to my room. Early the next morning, I went out to a construction site and found a job moving bricks. The sun was brutally hot, making me dizzy and blurring my vision. But I gritted my teeth and worked for half a month until I had finally saved up enough for the fare and to buy something for Grandpa. That half a month was one of the hardest times of my life. After those 2 weeks, I had saved over 1,000 yuan, enough for a round-trip ticket and to buy some nutritional supplements for Grandpa. The day the scores were released happened to be Lin Xiaoxiao's 18th birthday party. In order to be crowned in her life's most glorious moment in front of everyone, she held an extremely lavish banquet. All our aunts and uncles, our parents' colleagues and bosses were all invited. In the banquet hall, the sound of compliments rose and fell. A distant relative came up to our father, holding a wine glass. His face was all smiles. "Old Lin, your ancestors must be smiling down on you. To have twins who are both so successful." Another relative chimed in, with a bit of a sharp edge to their tone. "The older son is just a bookworm and isn't very considerate. Xiao Xiao is the thoughtful one. She gets good grades and is clever. She's 100 times better than her brother." The younger generation all gathered around Lin Xiaoxiao like she was the moon surrounded by stars. One of our cousins was so envious her eyes were red. "Cousin Xiaoxiao, you're so amazing. You'll be holding an acceptance letter from a top university in one hand, and a handsome boyfriend's arm in the other. You've basically won at life. Quick, what time can we check the scores? We're about to witness the historic birth of a top scorer. Don't worry if he's in the top few of the province. The admissions offices of Tsinghua or Peking will call early to recruit him." The moment he finished speaking, the phone did ring, but it wasn't for him. It was for me. Under the astonished gaze of everyone in the room, I answered one call after another. The admissions team from Qingde University, the admissions office from Qinghai University, and admissions officers from several other top universities. I thanked them politely, and said I would consider their offers carefully. Lin Xiaoxiao's eyes looked like they were about to pop out of her head. She stared intently at her own motionless phone, trying to save face. Through gritted teeth, she squeezed out one phrase, "The best always makes a grand finale." Finally, the results portal opened. Everyone swarmed around, urging Lin Xiaoxiao to log in. I also quietly opened the results page in a corner. Although I was confident, when it came to the actual moment of checking my score, my palms still began to sweat a little. Mother turned to me first. In a casual tone, she asked me what my score was. I showed my phone screen to everyone and said calmly, "I got 741. The whole room was in an uproar. I suppressed the earth-shattering ecstasy in my heart, keeping my face expressionless. "I did it, I really did it." Mother paused for a moment. She gave a stingy nod, not even giving it a second glance. Then she turned and rushed over to Lin Xiaoxiao. Her voice trembled with excitement. "Quick, Xiaoxiao's must be even higher." Lin Xiaoxiao was surrounded so tightly by the crowd that she had nowhere to hide even if she wanted to. With a trembling finger, she tapped the confirm button. The next second, her face froze. The look on her face was priceless, as if she had just swallowed a fly. Displayed prominently on the screen were 3 bright red numbers, 751. Lin Xiaoxiao's voice was shaking. The surroundings fell deathly silent. A distant relative, who didn't know what was going on, was still there, lavishing praise blindly. "Oh my, 751 points. That's 10 points higher than her brother. Xiaoxiao is such a child prodigy. If I remember correctly, the maximum score for the college entrance exam is only 750, right?" The atmosphere froze instantly. Lin Xiaoxiao panicked. Cold sweat streaked her delicate makeup. It must be a system error. Too many people are checking their scores. It must have crashed. She frantically refreshed the page. Her finger was about to poke a hole through the screen. Once, twice, 3 times. That damn 751 was like a nail, stuck firmly in the total score column. Someone suggested trying a different phone. Maybe it's a phone cache issue? Lin Xiaoxiao, as if grasping at a lifeline, snatched someone else's phone. The result was still 751. That one extra point was like a giant slap across her face. Just then, the doors to the banquet hall were pushed open. Several people in uniform from the IC and IY bureaus walked in with serious expressions. The leading officer scanned the room and asked in a low voice, "Who is Lin Xiaoxiao?" The Education Examinations Authority has detected a highly abnormal score, suspected of being a malicious system attack or major cheating. Please come with us to be investigated. Lin Xiaoxiao's legs gave out in fear, and she collapsed directly onto the floor. Her face was as white as a ghost's. Seeing this, Mom and Dad also panicked. But their first reaction wasn't to comfort their daughter, but to subconsciously look for a scapegoat. In the middle of the chaos, my mother actually shoved me forward. Pointing at me, she shrieked, "He did it. It must have been him. He was jealous of his sister, so he hacked the system and changed her score. Officers, arrest him. This has nothing to do with my daughter. Here we go again. These are my parents. At the critical moment, they don't hesitate to use me as a shield. Even if the reason is ridiculous, even if the logic makes no damn sense. As long as they can protect their precious daughter, what does sacrificing me matter?" My heart died completely, but instead, I felt incredibly relieved. I shook off my mother's hand and looked coldly at this bunch of clowns. "I'm not a hacker. I'm Lin Feng, the top science student in the entire province. Lin Xiaoxiao is over there. She's the one who got that miraculous score of 751. My father, furious and flustered, rushed over to slap me. I grabbed his wrist, my fierce gaze making him shudder. "Go ahead, try and touch me. The people in charge are right behind me. Right now, the top universities are fighting to recruit me. The media is scrambling to report on me. You dare touch me? From this moment on, in this house, no one can control me, and no one can bully me anymore." This coming-of-age party, originally meant for showing off, turned into a complete farce. Lin Xiaoxiao was taken away to cooperate with the investigation, leaving a total mess behind. There was no way to cover this up. A score of 751 on the college entrance exam? It just blew up. The hashtag went viral that same night. The top trending topics were all about this joke. People said it was a case of greed getting out of hand. They must have gone crazy buying that score. Others said, if you're going to cheat, at least use your brain. The maximum score is 750. You get 751? Are you insulting the graders? Or are you insulting the system? Someone dug up Lin Xiaoxiao's social media account, Wei Sha. They found out she'd been eating, drinking, and partying everywhere for the past 6 months, barely studying at all. The comments were overwhelmingly against Lin Xiaoxiao. Everyone thought she used her connections to change her score. But her hand slipped and she added too much. I scrolled through those comments with an indescribable sense of satisfaction. 18 years. I've waited for this moment. I've waited 18 years to finally let everyone see the truth. The investigation results came out quickly. There was an anomaly with Lin Xiaoxiao's answer sheet. For some reason, the scanner picked up an extra 1 point on her multiple choice section, causing the total score to overflow. Although there was no direct evidence that she had altered the answer sheet. For the sake of fairness, the Education Bureau decided to use a backup exam paper and have her retake the test alone. When the news reached our house, Lin Xiaoxiao was lying on the sofa scrolling through her phone. When she heard she had to retake the exam, she jumped right up, her face instantly turning deathly pale. "What do you mean, a retake? Why should I have to retake it? My score was real. It was the system that had a problem." My father sat to one side, his face ashen, and he hissed in a low voice. "Keep it down, the neighbors will hear you." My mother was pacing around anxiously. She was trying to comfort Lin Xiaoxiao while also trying to figure out a plan. "Xiaoxiao, don't panic. If you have to retake it, you have to retake it. You're so smart, it'll definitely be no problem." But Lin Xiaoxiao acted as if she'd gone crazy, throwing a massive tantrum at home. Crying and screaming, she insisted on dragging me to take the exam with her. "No, I'm not taking it without my brother. Make him go with me. I want him to sit right next to me." She rushed over and grabbed my arm. Her nails dug into my flesh, and her eyes were terrifyingly red. "Lin Feng, you have to take the exam with me. Do you hear me?" I shook her hand off and said in an icy tone, "I've already finished my exam. Why should I have to retake it with you?" Lin Xiaoxiao was stunned. She looked at me with an expression of pure disbelief, as if it had never crossed her mind that I would refuse her. Mother immediately jumped in to take her side. "Lin Feng, what is this attitude? Your sister is already in this state. Can't you just help her out? Feng, this affects our entire family's honor. What's the big deal with you just taking the test with Xiaoxiao one time?" I looked at them, finding the whole situation both laughable and pathetic. "What do you mean, the family's honor? That's Lin Xiaoxiao's honor. This has never had anything to do with me," I said. "I refuse." With that, I turned and went back to my room. I locked the door from the inside and refused to open it. no matter how much they knocked or yelled outside. Of course, this unreasonable request was also rejected by the Education Bureau. In the end, under full supervision, Lin Xiaoxiao retook the exam all by herself. The test was held in a conference room at the city's Education Bureau. Surveillance cameras were running 24 hours a day. There were also 3 proctors watching her the entire time, afraid she might try to pull another stunt. As expected, she failed spectacularly. Her total score on the retake was 157. That was even lower than her usual scores from random guessing. Her actual level was only around 300 points to begin with. In the last 6 months, she had been too busy with her romance and dreaming of being number 1 to even crack open a book. On the day the results were released, I was at a construction site moving bricks. I received a message from a classmate, saying Lin Xiaoxiao had scored 157 on the retake. I froze for a second, then chuckled and squatted on the ground. Not getting up for a long while, a coworker thought I had heat stroke, and even handed me some water. I waved my hand and said I was fine. I'm just too happy. This retake completely tore off her mask. First, a 751, and now, a 157. The huge contrast sent public opinion into a frenzy. The netizens' comments were one more brilliant than the next. Someone said, "Ha ha ha, 157, that must be her real level." Someone else said, "This is solid proof. The previous 751 was definitely from cheating." Another person made a meme, putting the 751 and the 157 side by side. With the caption, "From heaven to hell, all it takes is one retake." Lin Xiaoxiao couldn't handle the cyberbullying and tried to use her old report cards from before senior year to prove herself. But the all-powerful netizens dug up everything, including her bizarre, meteoric rise over the last 6 months of senior year. Before that, it was all hopeless scores around 300, which made everyone even more certain. This girl has been cheating since the start of senior year. While they were at it, the netizens also dug up my report cards. My scores for every major exam, from elementary school to high school, were all pulled up. Consistently in the top 3 from childhood. Now this is a true top student. Steady as a rock. Someone commented, "Are they really biological siblings? How can the difference be so huge?" Someone else said, "One gets a 750. How can the gap be this big? The other one can't even make it to 250. I just watched those comments roll in. I had mixed feelings. I used to think that getting good grades would earn my parents' approval. But then I discovered that no matter how high my scores were, in their eyes, I could never compare to Lin Xiaoxiao. Because what they needed wasn't an outstanding son, but a tool to bail out their daughter. The same teachers and classmates who once put Lin Xiaoxiao on a pedestal now treated her like the plague. Even my parents would get pointed at whenever they went out. The neighbors gossiped behind their backs, saying the girl next door was actually a fraud, who had cheated everyone for all these years. It was an utter embarrassment to the family. During that time, Lin Xiaoxiao hid herself in her room, afraid to see anyone, like a rat scurrying across the street. She kept the curtains drawn tight and even had her mother leave her meals at the door, refusing to meet with anyone. Meanwhile, I was holding my acceptance letter from Qingbai Medical School, packing my bags to go back to my hometown and stay with my grandpa. I just had to wait until school started at the end of August, and I would be completely free. Or so I thought. The summers in the countryside were as hot as a steamer, but I felt at peace there. Grandpa's old house was at the foot of the mountain, a 3-room adobe house. In front of the door was an old pagoda tree, and the noisy cicadas weren't annoying at all. This was my real home. Ever since I can remember, I was thrown here. My parents claimed the country air was good and suitable for my health, but in reality, they just found me to be an eyesore. They wanted Lin Xiaoxiao to have all the love and resources to herself. With me around, it just meant more competition. Grandpa never said a bad word about my parents to me. He just quietly took care of me, taught me how to read and write, and told me that you have to rely on yourself in life. The thing he said most often was, "Studying is the only way out for a poor kid." I carved those words into my very bones. I stayed at the old house for over 20 days. Every morning, I'd wake up early to help Grandpa feed the chickens. In the mornings, I'd read in the courtyard, and in the afternoons, I'd go with him for a walk in the fields. In the evenings, we'd sit under the pagoda tree to cool off, and he would tell me stories from the past. He'd talk about how mischievous my dad was as a child, and how hardworking my mom was when she first married into the family. Listening to these unfamiliar stories, I felt like I was hearing about someone else's family. Because in my memory, my parents were never those kinds of people. One evening, as we were sitting in the courtyard cooling off, the moonlight was bright, and Grandpa suddenly asked me, "How did you do on the college entrance exam?" I thought for a moment, and answered honestly, "I think I did well." Grandpa nodded, and a light shone in his cloudy eyes. He looked up at the moon in the sky and was silent for a while. "That's good, then," he sighed. His voice was a little hoarse. "Grandpa hasn't accomplished much in his life. So I'm counting on you." I lowered my head, my nose started to tingle. Growing up, he was the only one who had ever said something like that to me. The only one who truly wished the best for me. "Grandpa, once I get into college and get a job, I'll bring you to the city to live with me." He waved his hand, smiling like a child. "Can't get used to the city. It's the thought that counts." That night, I was lying on the clay bed in the old house, listening to the crickets chirping outside the window. I thought that once my results were out, everything would be settled. I'd show everyone that I, Lin Feng, am not some pushover people can bully, nor am I anyone's stepping stone. August 12th. There was still more than half a month until school started. I was in the yard helping Grandpa's son dry corn, taking basket after basket of golden cobs, and spreading them out on a bamboo mat. Suddenly, the phone in my pocket rang. It was my mother's number. I froze for a second. She almost never called me first. The last time was right before the college entrance exams. She'd asked what score I thought I'd get, her tone scrutinizing and calculating. I answered the phone, and heard crying on the other end. My mother's voice was hoarse and frantic. "Xiao Feng, you have to come home, quick. Your dad's suddenly gotten sick. He's not going to make it." My heart plummeted. The dustpan in my hands nearly fell to the floor. "What's the illness?" I asked. "What hospital is he in?" My mother just kept crying. She wouldn't answer my questions, just kept repeating, "Come home, quick. Come home." Then she hung up. I just stood there, my mind a total mess. Grandpa came out of the house. He saw the look on my face and asked, "What's wrong?" I told him what happened, and the color drained from his face too. He urged me to hurry up and pack to go home. No matter what. "He's your father. You have to go and see him." I nodded, went back to my room, and just shoved a few clothes into my backpack. Before I left, Grandpa ran out and pressed a cloth bundle into my hand. It felt heavy. "Take this," he said. "It's what I've saved up for emergencies." I opened it up. Inside was a wad of crumpled small bills, and a few hundred yuan bills. It was probably more than 2,000 yuan altogether. It was money he'd made from selling eggs and vegetables. Pension money he'd saved up bit by bit. I tried to give it back to him, but he had already turned and gone inside. His stooped back looked especially small and frail in the doorway. I clutched the bundle, my eyes starting to burn. It's a 2-hour bus ride from the village to the county seat, then a 3-hour train ride from the county seat to the city. From there, I'd have to transfer to a high-speed train. The whole trip would take nearly 10 hours. I bought a ticket for the soonest bus and sat on the bumpy ride, watching the scenery fly past the window. But my mind started to clear. Something was wrong. There were too many things that didn't add up. My mother's crying was too dramatic. It was so over the top, it was like she was acting. Plus, she never said what illness my father had. She didn't say which hospital, or even give any specifics about his condition. She just kept insisting that I come home. If he was really in critical condition, she should have said, "Your dad is at so-and-so hospital. You need to get here, not you need to come home." Come home to where? The house? If he was in the hospital being treated, how could she have the time to be waiting at home just to call me? And her tone, it carried a kind of indescribable urgency. The kind of urgency that wasn't like a wife worried about her husband. It was more like she was afraid I wouldn't come back. The more I thought about it, the more suspicious it felt. I called my father's cell phone. It was busy. I called again. Still busy. I changed my approach and called one of my father's colleagues. He was a man I'd met a few times before. I politely asked if something had happened to my dad. His voice was filled with surprise. "Huh? Your dad just treated us all to dinner last week. He's doing great." "What's wrong?" "It's nothing." I must have misheard something. I just made up an excuse and hung up. It was just as I suspected. Leaning back in my seat, I stared at the endless mountains outside the window. The weight in my heart was actually lifted. It's not that I'm cold-blooded. It's just that I know this family all too well. If my father were really on his deathbed, Lin Xiaoxiao would have already been all over the internet, crying a river and playing the victim for sympathy. Knowing her, it's impossible for there to be absolutely no buzz about it. So, if it's a trap, what's their goal in tricking me to come back? It took me a few hours to solve that puzzle, but the answer was obvious. The scandal with Lin Xiaoxiao had blown up. That 751 joke is still a trending topic. Even if she repeated the school year, she still wouldn't get into a good university. Because without me, she is absolutely nothing. And here I am, about to start a new life at a top university, finally free of this cesspool. They would never allow that to happen. In their eyes, my only purpose for existing is to be Lin Xiaoxiao's stepping stone. To be her tool, her blood bag. After I figured that out, I wasn't scared anymore. In fact, I felt the calm composure of a hunter who has set a trap and is waiting for the prey to walk right in. Only this time, the hunter and the prey were about to switch places. Since you all want to put on an act, I'll play along until the very end. But the final script is going to be written by me. On the train, I used the money my grandfather gave me to buy a cheap burner phone and a power bank. I charged both phones to full and downloaded a video recording app that automatically uploads to the cloud. I tested it 3 times to make sure it was foolproof. I also sent a message to a few of the future roommates I'd met in the university's new student group chat, briefly explaining the situation. I told them if they couldn't reach me for more than 48 hours, they should call the police for me. I also shared my live location with them. Better safe than sorry. Holy crap, dude, is your family situation that messed up? Don't worry, we've got your back. You go on ahead, don't worry. If anything really happens, we'll call the cops immediately. Stay safe, and keep in touch. Reading those messages, a feeling of warmth spread through my heart. People I had never even met were willing to help me, and yet my so-called flesh and blood wanted to shove me into a pit of fire. This world is truly ironic. By the time I arrived home, it was already the evening of the next day. The setting sun stained the old apartment building a dull yellow as I stood downstairs, dragging my suitcase. I looked up at the place where I had lived for 12 years, yet had never felt like I belonged. I took a deep breath. I went upstairs and knocked. The door opened. My mother's face appeared in the doorway. Her eyes were red, as if she had just been crying. She was startled when she saw me, then immediately forced a fawning smile. "Oh, Xiao Feng, you're finally back. Come in, come in." Her unnatural enthusiasm gave me goosebumps. Growing up, when had she ever been so attentive to me? I walked into the house, keeping my expression neutral. My eyes quickly scanned the living room. Father was sitting on the sofa, watching TV, the remote still in his hand. His complexion was perfectly rosy. He didn't look like he was on his deathbed at all. I stood in the entryway, my hand still gripping the handle of my suitcase, and asked in a calm voice, "Didn't you say Father was sick? Why is he home watching TV?" The air in the living room froze for a second. Father glanced up at me, his expression a little unnatural. The smile on my mother's face stiffened. She quickly tried to cover. "Oh, it was just a false alarm. Your dad was feeling sick yesterday, but we went to the hospital for a checkup. And it turned out to be nothing serious. We were just thinking, since you're about to leave for school in Bayan, we wanted you to come back for a get-together. We're a family, after all." The words "a family" sounded especially ironic coming from her. I didn't call her out on it. I just nodded. I mumbled an okay and took off my shoes to go inside. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lin Xiaoxiao at the other end of the sofa. She was huddled in the corner, wearing pajamas, her hair a mess. Her face was sallow, with dark circles under her eyes. She looked like a completely different person from the spirited, golden child she was just a few months ago. When she saw me walk in, she looked up. Her expression was complicated. There was resentment in it, fear, and something else I couldn't quite decipher. I pretended not to notice. I went straight to my room to drop off my luggage. My room was at the very back, just over 10 square meters, and it never saw any sunlight. It used to be a storage room when I was little. Later, when I came back from my grandpa's house for school, they reluctantly cleared it out for me to live in. Lin Xiaoxiao's room, on the other hand, was the south-facing master bedroom, large and bright. The resources in this family had always been divided with such stark clarity. I closed the door and began to inspect the room. The desk, the bookshelf, the closet, under the bed. I checked everywhere to make sure nothing had been tampered with. Then, I took the spare phone out of my backpack and found a hidden spot. I propped it up among a pile of junk on the bookshelf, with the camera aimed directly at the door. I turned on recording mode and put it on silent, making sure there wouldn't be any notification sounds while it recorded. After I'd done all that, I lay on the bed, pretending to doze off, but my ears were pricked up, listening for every little sound from the living room. For dinner, my mother cooked a huge feast. They, for the first time ever, called me out to eat and even served me food. Zhaofeng, you've gotten thinner. You're about to leave home soon. So eat more. I ate, but I couldn't taste a thing. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what they really wanted, and when they would show their fangs. After dinner, my father coughed and cleared his throat, as if he was about to start a lecture. Zhaofeng, the reason we asked you to come back is that we have something we want to discuss with you. Here it comes. I looked up, my face showing the perfect amount of confusion. It's like this. Your sister, she hasn't been doing well lately. You know that. That whole college entrance exam thing was a huge blow to her. She's severely depressed now. She won't even leave her room. Your mother and I discussed it. And you're her brother, the person she's closest to. Did you spend more time with her? Talk to her, cheer her up. Is that it? I was waiting for them to show their true colors. As expected, my mother chimed in, her tone sounding me out. That's right, Zhaofeng, you two are fraternal twins. You're bound by blood. Even if the bone is broken, the sinews are still connected. Help your sister. What's wrong? I still didn't respond, just looked at them. The atmosphere was tense for a moment. Then, Lin Xiaoxiao suddenly looked up. Her eyes red as she looked at me, her voice choked with sobs. Brother, I know I was wrong. Okay? I've had time to think things through. It was all my fault before. I shouldn't have treated you that way. Can you please give me one more chance? I almost laughed out loud. Her acting skills had improved. Too bad I wasn't buying it. I asked them what they really wanted me to do, cutting straight to the point. I didn't have the patience to beat around the bush with them. My father and mother exchanged a look, as if confirming something. Finally, my father laid his cards on the table. Zhaofeng, it's like this. We've thought of a way that can get Xiaoxiao into college, too. I raised an eyebrow, signaling him to continue. Xiaoxiao told us about her score on the exam, and about that 10-point rule. You should understand it better than we do. There's a very special connection between you two. As long as you're around, she can get a high score. My heart skipped a beat. She actually told them that secret. My father stood up and walked over to me, his tone leaving no room for argument. So, your mother and I discussed it. We were wondering if you could postpone going to Tsinghua or Peking for a year and repeat senior year. Next year, you can take the college entrance exam with Xiaoxiao. That way, she can also get into a good university. Wouldn't it bring great honor to our family to have two children get into top universities? I was stunned, not because of how absurd the request was, but because of the sheer entitlement in their voices as they asked it. As if it were the most natural thing in the world. As if sacrificing my future for Lin Xiaoxiao was a matter of course. As if it were only right, my mother seized the opportunity, coming over to grab my hand. Her eyes glinted with calculation. Zhaofeng, this isn't a bad thing for you, you know. You're so smart, you'll definitely get in again next year. By then, you'll have the reputation of a top scorer, plus a year of extra hard work. Tsinghua and Peking University will be fighting over you, and Xiaoxiao will have a good future too. All four of us in our family will be successful. Isn't that a happy ending for everyone? What a happy ending for everyone. I already have my acceptance letter. Why should I repeat a year? My father waved his hand dismissively. What's an acceptance letter? That thing becomes void automatically if you don't show up to register. Feng, you're the older brother. What's wrong with letting your sister have her way a little? When Xiaoxiao is successful in the future, she won't forget you. You'll get a share of the money she earns. I just heard the funniest joke in the world. I said, I refuse. The moment the words left my mouth, the atmosphere instantly dropped to a freezing point. My father's face darkened, and my mother's expression froze. As for Lin Xiaoxiao, she jerked her head up, the pleading in her eyes instantly turning sinister. My father stood up, looking down on me from his full height. His tone was laced with a threat. Lin Feng, what kind of attitude is this? We're trying to discuss this with you nicely. How can you just reject it flat out? I said, because on this matter, there is no room for discussion. I also stood up, looking them straight in the eye. You want me to give up my spot at a top university to repeat a year with someone who only scored 157 points on her college entrance exam? And then use my score to get her into a prestigious university? On what grounds? My mother shrieked. On the grounds that she's your sister. You're the older brother. Helping your sister is your natural duty. I've helped her for 18 years, ever since we were little. You gave all the resources to her, while you left me in the countryside and couldn't care less. Now that she's messed up her own life, you suddenly remember me? You want me to sacrifice my future to clean up her mess? My father slammed the table. The bowls and chopsticks jumped. Lin Feng, what's with this attitude? This is my attitude. I won't do it. I turned and walked toward my room. From behind me came Lin Xiaoxiao's hysterical scream. Lin Feng, what gives you the right? Those points should have been mine in the first place. What are you without me? I stopped in my tracks and turned around to look at her twisted face. Lin Xiaoxiao, you listen carefully. I earned those points by writing every single stroke myself. They have absolutely nothing to do with you. The fact that you could leech off my score was your good fortune. It was not your ability. And it's certainly not a bargaining chip for you to brazenly blackmail me with. Lin Xiaoxiao was so stunned by my words that she couldn't speak. Tears streamed from her eyes, whether from anger or desperation, I couldn't tell. My mother rushed over to stand in front of her, pointing at me and scolding. Lin Feng, you've upset your sister this much. Do you even have a conscience? I asked her, do you have a conscience? I couldn't be bothered to argue with them anymore. I went into my room and locked the door from the inside. From outside the door came the sounds of things being thrown and smashed, along with my father's furious curses. My mother's sobs and Lin Xiaoxiao's screams were also mixed in. It was like a pot of boiling porridge. I leaned against the door. I closed my eyes, listening to all this noise. But my heart was surprisingly calm. Tonight was just the first round. The real battle was yet to come. I had a feeling they wouldn't give up this easily. Just wait, I had plenty of patience. That night, I didn't sleep well, my eyes fixed on the ceiling. My ears were constantly on alert. Around 2 in the morning, I heard a faint sound outside the door, like someone whispering. I held my breath and listened carefully. It was my father and mother. My mother's voice was kept very low, but I still heard her clearly. Old Lin. Why don't we take his things while he's asleep? Without his ID and acceptance letter. Let's see how he's going to leave. Look, the light in his room is off. He must be asleep. Let's do it tonight. Best not to drag this out. Footsteps approached the door. My heart raced, but my body didn't move an inch. I pretended to be fast asleep. The doorknob turned slightly. I was glad I had locked the door. I heard my mother's hushed curse from outside. This kid actually locked the door. Forget it, we'll deal with it tomorrow. It's not like he can run away anyway. The footsteps gradually faded. I opened my eyes, staring at the ceiling in the darkness. I sneered inwardly. Just as I expected, they never planned on letting me go. From the moment I stepped into this house, I had fallen into their trap. But what they didn't know was, I was already prepared. In this game, it's not yet certain who will win and who will lose. The next morning, I tentatively tried to turn the doorknob. The door was locked from the outside. My heart sank. I walked to the window and looked out. There were security bars on the outside. They were welded on tight. There was no way out. I still had a phone signal, but the internet connection was cut off. I used my mobile data to send a message to my roommate to let them know I was safe, telling them I was okay for now. But the situation wasn't good. I told them to be on standby. Around 10 in the morning, the lock on the door clicked. My mother came in carrying a bowl of porridge, a forced smile on her face. You must be hungry. Have something to eat. Have you come to your senses yet? I didn't take the bowl. She put the porridge on the table and sighed. Her tone carried a hint of a threat. Xiao Feng, let me give you some advice. A wise person knows how to adapt to the circumstances, even if you get into a top university. So what? Who's going to pay for your tuition and living expenses? Do you think we'd give you a single penny? By then, you won't even be able to afford to attend. You'll just have to come back obediently in the end. I looked at her, saying nothing. Seeing that I remained silent, thinking I was wavering, she upped the ante. Who knows if that acceptance letter of yours is even still around? If you just behave and repeat a year, we'll give you our full support next year. But if you disobey, she didn't finish her sentence, but her meaning was crystal clear. I remained silent. After she left, I discovered the door had been locked again. From that moment on, I was officially under house arrest. The first day, I was able to stay calm. By the second day, I started to get anxious. Not because I was afraid, but because time was slipping away. The start of the semester was getting closer and closer. I had to find a way out. On the third day, I decided to risk it. 2 in the morning, everyone was asleep. I quietly got out of bed and used the file from a nail clipper to pick the lock. This kind of old-fashioned spring lock wasn't hard to open. It took me about 10 minutes. Finally, I heard a faint click. The door was open. I held my breath, shuffling my way out, step by step. The living room was pitch black. I felt along the wall, heading toward the front door. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would leap out of my throat. The floorboards occasionally let out a soft creak. With every sound, I froze to listen for any movement. I only continued forward after confirming there was no one there. Just as my hand was about to touch the front doorknob, the lights flickered on. I froze solid. My father was standing at the entrance to the hallway. He was holding a wooden stick, his face livid with rage. He had obviously been waiting for me to try and escape. I offered no explanation. I turned to run back, but it was too late. He closed the distance in a few long strides and brought the stick down hard on my back. The excruciating pain sent me sprawling to the floor. What followed was a tempest of beatings and curses. I curled into a ball, protecting my head as the stick rained down on me. Every blow was agonizing. "I'll teach you to run. I'll teach you to be disobedient. I'll beat you to death, you ungrateful wolf." My mother and Lin Xiaoxiao had come out at some point and were standing off to the side, watching. Not a single one of them said a word to stop him. Lin Xiaoxiao even had a hint of a satisfied smirk on her face. My father finally tired himself out and stopped, panting heavily. "I'm telling you, Lin Feng, you can forget about ever running away from this family as long as you live. Unless you agree to repeat the year." I lay on the floor, my whole body trembling. Not from fear, but from fury. 18 years of forbearance were about to burst from my chest, but I held it back. It wasn't time yet. I didn't have enough evidence. My final move wasn't ready. I was dragged back to my room, thrown onto the bed, and the door was locked tight again. They even added a new lock. This time, it was a padlock on the outside. Impossible to pick. I lay on the bed, a searing pain burning across my back. But that pain, strangely, made my mind clearer. "What's your rush, Lin Feng? I've already waited 18 years. A few more days won't make a difference. Let them be smug for a few more days. Once you've gathered enough evidence, not a single one of them will get away. For the next 2 days, I'll behave myself and stop trying to escape." I ate when I was supposed to eat and slept when I was supposed to sleep. On the surface, it looked like I had accepted my fate. My parents thought they had beaten me into submission. They loosened their watch over me a little, but the door was still locked. I still couldn't get out. I used these 2 days to carefully observe their routines, memorizing when each person went to sleep. And when they woke up, I committed every one of these details to memory, waiting for the perfect moment. On the night of the 4th day, they finally made their move. At 2:07 in the morning, I heard a soft click from the lock. It wasn't a tentative sound. It was the sound of someone unlocking the door. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing steady, pretending to be fast asleep. But every single nerve in my body was on high alert. The door was pushed open. The footsteps were very light, as if they were afraid of waking me. It was 2 people. I could tell from the rhythm of their breathing. One of them was my mother. They crept over to my desk and started rummaging through my things. I maintained my sleeping posture, but my heart couldn't help but race. I knew what they were looking for. My ID card and my university acceptance letter. Those 2 things were my keys to escaping this hell, and they were the leverage they used to trap me. The rummaging went on for several minutes. I heard my mother's hushed voice, "Old Lin, I can't find it. Where did you say he hid it?" My father grumbled impatiently, "Keep looking. It has to be in this room. He can't take it out with him anyway." They tore through the desk drawers, went through the bookshelf and my backpack. They even felt through the pockets of all my clothes. I felt someone walk over to my bed and stand there for a moment. They must have been debating whether or not to check my pillow. Suddenly, a third voice came from the doorway. It was Lin Xiaoxiao. "Found it yet? Shush, don't wake him up." Lin Xiaoxiao walked in impatiently. Her footsteps were much louder than my parents'. She clearly didn't care if she woke me. I felt her stand right beside my bed, staring down at me with a scrutinizing gaze. Her stare was as cold as a viper's. I could almost feel her breath on my face. Then her voice rang out, cold and certain. "Stop pretending. I know you're awake." I didn't move, still keeping my breathing steady, but in my head, I was cursing her out. This madwoman's senses are terrifyingly sharp. Lin Xiaoxiao didn't press the issue of whether I was awake or not. Instead, she just joined in on the search herself. Her movements were much rougher than my parents'. Things were thrown about haphazardly. Books from the shelf were flung to the floor one by one, and drawers were pulled out completely. My ID card, I had hidden it in the inner lining of my pillowcase. As for the acceptance letter, I had folded it into a tiny square and sewn it into the lining of my suitcase. Thought they would never find them, but I had underestimated Lin Xiaoxiao's madness. She ripped my pillow away and started feeling the pillowcase. Inch by inch, she felt it over. Her technique was like she was searching for drugs. She didn't miss a single corner. When she felt the hidden compartment, her hand stopped, then she let out a shriek of delight. I found it, my heart sank, but I didn't move. Then, he lunged for my suitcase. Like a crazed beast, he dumped everything out of it. Then he started tearing at the lining. The sound of the fabric ripping was piercing. His nails scraped against the lining until he finally felt something hard inside. I couldn't take it anymore. I shot up in bed. I reached out and flicked on the bedside lamp. The room was flooded with light. It was so bright everyone squinted. I could finally see the scene clearly. My father and mother were standing by the desk, holding my ID card. They looked a little guilty, but more than that, they looked self-righteous. Lin Xiaoxiao stood by the suitcase, clutching an envelope in her hand. That was the envelope with my acceptance letter. The look on her face was as if she'd found treasure. Greedy and excited, I stared at them. My voice was ice cold when I asked what they were doing in the middle of the night. The three of them glanced at each other. They dropped the act. My father slapped the ID card onto the table. He spoke with self-righteous anger. Lin Feng, we're not going to beat around the bush. Xiao Xiao told us everything. As long as you're here, she can get high scores. This is a special bond between you two as siblings. Just accept your fate. My mother came closer. Her eyes held a mix of calculation and threat. Xiao Feng, listen to your mother. Repeating a year won't do you any harm. You're so smart, you'll definitely be able to get in again next year. And by then, Xiao Xiao will have a university to go to as well. Our family will have 2 students at a top university. Isn't that a win-win? I said no. I stood up to get my ID card back, but my father shoved me away. He was stronger than I thought. I stumbled a few steps and slammed into the wall. The wound on my back flared with pain from the impact. My father's face drew closer. His tone was chilling as he threatened me. You won't do it? You think you have a choice? From today on, you're not going anywhere. Without an ID card, and without an acceptance letter, you can't go to Bion. You'll just have to be a good boy and stay home to repeat the year. Once you're done with your exams next year, everything will go back to normal. You can still go to your top university. No one is holding you back. Not holding me back? Forcing me to repeat a year, throwing my entire life plan into chaos. Making me a stepping stone for that good for nothing? You call that not holding me back? I took a deep breath, forcing down the rage that was boiling up inside me. Now wasn't the time for a complete falling out. I needed more evidence. I asked them, so, you came to confiscate my things tonight? My mother sneered, no longer bothering to hide her contempt. What do you mean, confiscate? Mom and Dad are supposed to be in charge of things in this house. You're still a child, something as important as an ID card. What's wrong with us keeping it safe for you? I looked at Lin Xiaoxiao. She was pulling the acceptance letter out of the envelope, her face filled with the triumphant glee of revenge. She held up that acceptance letter like it was a war trophy. Then she did something I'll never forget. She gripped that acceptance letter, her eyes burning with a crazed hatred. Then, right in front of me, she slowly and forcefully tore it in half. Screenwriter. Sila. The sound was sharp and piercing. Screenwriter. Like the sound of something snapping. But she wasn't satisfied. She kept tearing those 2 halves, until they became a pile of shreds, fluttering to the ground like snowflakes. Her movements were slow, as if she were savoring the process. With every rip, the corners of her mouth curled up a little more. I stared at those scraps, and for a moment, my mind went blank. That was what I had earned through 12 years of grueling study, the result of countless days and nights spent grinding through practice problems. It was the start of my new life. And just like that, she tore it to shreds. Lin Xiaoxiao looked at my expression and laughed like a maniac. The acceptance letter is gone. Let's see how you're going to enroll now. Lin Feng, you will only ever be my stepping stone. I want you to rot in this pit of mud with me. The more she spoke, the more agitated she became, her entire body trembling. With her hair all disheveled, she looked like a ghost. Why do you get to be better than me? Why does everyone praise you? Why do you get to go to Tsinghua or Peking University? While I'm stuck at home being laughed at, all those grades should have been mine. Tears were streaming down her face, but they weren't tears of grievance. They were tears of indignation, of jealousy, of madness. But just then, her voice suddenly dropped, as if she were talking to herself, yet also talking to me. Do you have any idea how scared I've been? I've known my whole life that my grades were fake. That they were stolen from you, she confessed, her face contorted. Before every single exam, she was scared to death. She was terrified you'd mess up one day, terrified that everyone would find out she was actually a good-for-nothing. Through her tears, she said she hated me, hated that I was smarter than her. The ridiculous part is, she actually thought I didn't have to do anything to get such high scores. But I hate myself more. Without you, I'm nothing. So you can't leave. You have to stay. You have to be my stepping stone forever. It's the only way I can survive. I looked at her, at this person I had called my sister for 18 years, and for the first time, I found her pathetic. But being pathetic isn't a reason for me to forgive her, and it's no excuse for her to destroy my life. My father and mother stood off to the side, watching Lin Xiaoxiao's insane display. Not a single one of them tried to stop her. In fact, their faces even held a hint of approval, as if she'd done something incredibly satisfying. I watched this scene unfold, and suddenly found it all so absurd, and so tragic. This is my family. This is the so-called blood is thicker than water. I lowered my head and stared at the pieces on the floor. My shoulders started to tremble. They thought I was crying. They thought I was breaking down. My mother let out a laugh. Her tone was dripping with condescending pity. Alright, what's there to cry about? It's not a big deal. You can just take the exam again next year. Just consider this a lesson learned. Be more obedient from now on. I didn't say anything. I just crouched down, and started picking up the pieces with a trembling hand. Lin Xiaoxiao looked at my pathetic state. The smile on her face grew even more unrestrained. Go on, cry some more. You deserve it. This is your fate. I raised my head and looked at her. She froze, because there were no tears in my eyes. There was only a cold hatred, and a fleeting smile. That smile scared her. She subconsciously took a step back. She asked me what I was smiling about. I slowly stood up. My voice was hoarse yet calm as I said, it's nothing. I was just thinking. Your performance just now was quite brilliant. If you can't make it in life, you could always become an actress. I didn't say any more. Instead, I pretended to collapse onto the edge of the bed in despair. My eyes were vacant as I mumbled to myself. It's over. It's all over. Lin Xiaoxiao looked at my state. The alarm on her face gradually faded, replaced by the smugness of a victor. Now you know what it feels like to be scared, huh? A little too late for that. My father snorted coldly. He shoved my ID card into his own pocket. Alright, everyone go to bed. From today on, this kid isn't going anywhere. The three of them acted as if they had just completed a mission, and walked out of my room. Before leaving, my mother even locked the door from the outside. The click of the lock was soft, but it struck my heart like a clap of thunder. I was locked in. The room fell back into darkness. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to their retreating footsteps. Listening as the house returned to silence. Then, I stood up. I walked to the bookshelf, and from a pile of junk, I pulled out the spare phone, its red light still blinking. They never expected it. They had turned the whole room upside down. They forgot to check that pile of what they thought was junk. The recording captured everything. Lin Xiaoxiao's frenzy as she tore up the acceptance letter, my parents watching coldly from the side. Even their expressions as they egged her on. The conspiracy they admitted to with their own mouths. It was all in this video. I uploaded the video to the cloud, backed it up again, and then one more time, just to be sure. Then, I edited a short version and posted it online, with the caption, "This is the toxic family I want to escape." After posting, I dialed the police. I want to report a crime. I've been illegally detained by my family. The operator asked for my address and the basic details. I answered each question. She said she would send someone over and told me to wait. After calling the police, I put my phone on silent. I lay back down in the pile of junk, and then got back onto the bed. My heart was pounding, but on the surface, I had to stay calm. I didn't know how long it would take for the police to arrive, nor did I know what would happen before then. But I knew that as long as I could get through tonight, everything would be different. Time ticked by, second by second. Sky outside the window began to lighten. My eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling, my ears catching every subtle sound in the house. At 4:23, I heard footsteps. They were Lin Xiaoxiao's. Her steps were very light, as if she were afraid of waking someone up, but in the quiet of the night, they were still clearly audible. She stopped outside my bedroom door. I held my breath, not moving a muscle. The lock clicked. She came in again. I closed my eyes, pretending to be asleep. My heartbeat sounded like a drum in my ears. She walked to my bedside and stood there for a while. I could feel her gaze on me, filled with scrutiny and suspicion. Then she started to wander around the room, her footsteps sometimes distant, sometimes near. Like a beast patrolling its territory. I didn't know what she was looking for, but I had a bad feeling. The footsteps stopped in front of the bookshelf. My heart suddenly clenched. The sound of rummaging started. She was digging through that pile of clutter. My fingers quietly tightened on the corner of the blanket. My mind raced, calculating what I would do if she found the phone. What should I do? Suddenly, the rummaging stopped. The air became still. I could almost hear my own heartbeat. What is this? I knew she had found it. It's over. I snapped my eyes open and sat up. I saw her holding the spare phone, the red recording dot still glowing on the screen. The look on her face went from confusion to shock, and then to Lin Feng, you're recording? She screamed and lunged at me like a crazed beast. I didn't have time to dodge. Her nails scratched right across my face. It stung with a fiery pain. I grabbed her wrist. The two of us wrestled with each other. Even though she's a girl, at that moment, she was like someone possessed, with astonishing strength. We knocked over the bedside table, and the lamp crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. The noise was too loud. My parents were quickly awakened. My father rushed in. Seeing the scene, without a second thought, he shoved me away. The back of my head hit the wall. How dare you hit your sister? I clutched my head, panting heavily, and said, I didn't hit her. She started it. Lin Xiaoxiao had already scrambled up from the floor, still clutching the phone tightly in her hand. She ran behind my father, as if she had found her protector. Dad. He was secretly recording. He recorded all of us. My father's expression changed in an instant. He snatched the phone from my hand. He looked down at the screen, and his face grew darker and darker. The veins on his forehead were bulging. Lin Feng, you've done well. You've done really well. He slammed the phone onto the ground with all his might. The phone screen shattered. Then he stomped on it viciously a few times, until the phone was nothing but a pile of scrap metal. I watched the shattered phone, but I didn't feel the slightest bit of panic, because the video had already been uploaded to the cloud. This phone was just a shell, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I put on a look of utter despair, as if my last lifeline had been snatched away. My mother rushed over too. When she saw what was happening, her face turned pale. This ungrateful brat wants to call the police. He wants to get us all sent to jail. He definitely wants to post the video online, just like he did to expose me last time. Without a word, my father slapped me again. My face swelled up instantly. I could taste blood in the corner of my mouth. I'm telling you, Lin Feng, this isn't over. You're going to stay right here, you hear me? Don't even think about going anywhere. If you dare call the police or post that online, I'll break your legs. He left, cursing under his breath. As he left, he told my mother to keep a close watch on me. My mother stood at the doorway. Oh, Feng, you've disappointed me so much. Everything we do is for this family. Why can't you understand that? Enough. Think long and hard about what you've done. Then she left too. The door was locked from the outside again. This time, I heard him move something to barricade it. I heard the sound of a chair being dragged. I was alone in the room again. I looked at the mess on the floor and leaned against the wall. Touching my swollen face, I thought to myself that they had no idea the police were already on their way. And they had no idea the video was already online. They thought destroying a phone would solve everything. Little did they know, the real storm was just beginning. Time passed, and the sky began to brighten. I heard birds chirping outside the window. It was around 6 o'clock. I heard my father's phone ring, followed by his panicked voice. What video? Who posted it? Then came my mother's piercing scream and Lin Xiaoxiao's crying. The whole house erupted into chaos. I knew the video had blown up. I don't know how much time passed. Maybe half an hour. I heard a knock on the door. It was loud and urgent, accompanied by someone shouting, "Open up. This is the police." Someone filed a report. I heard my father's voice from the living room, panicked and guilty. The police? Who called them? Lin, what do we do? Don't panic. Hide that brat. Just say he's not home. I listened from my room. Hide me? Where could they possibly hide me? The knocking grew more frantic. People inside, open the door, or we will be forced to take action. My father finally couldn't hold out any longer. I heard the sound of the door being opened, followed by a burst of chaotic chatter. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but I could tell my father was making excuses, trying to explain it all away and smooth things over. A few minutes later, the things blocking my door were moved aside. The door opened, and 2 police officers in uniform were standing in the doorway. As soon as they saw me, they frowned. One of the younger-looking officers walked over. "Are you Lin Feng, the one who made the report?" I nodded. He looked at the bruises on my face and the swelling at the corner of my mouth. He then glanced at the total mess in the room, and his expression grew serious. "You're injured. Who hit you?" My father. My father's voice echoed from the living room. It was laced with anger and guilt. "Officers, this is a family matter. Is there a problem with me disciplining my own son?" The older officer glanced back at him. "A family matter? So, unlawful imprisonment and restricting personal liberty is a family matter. We received a report that someone was locked in their home by family and couldn't get out. We also received a video. See for yourself. Is this what you call a family matter?" Playing on the screen was the video I recorded, the footage of my parents and Lin Xiaoxiao ransacking my things. Lin Xiaoxiao's crazed expression as she ripped up the acceptance letter, and the exact words they all said out loud. My father's face instantly turned ghost white, and my mother's legs gave out from under her. She almost collapsed right there on the floor. Lin Xiaoxiao was hiding in a corner. Her hair disheveled, her eyes completely blank, like an insect that had been stepped on. "Lin Feng, can you walk? We need you to come with us to give a statement." I nodded, then I stood up, stepping over the shattered pieces on the floor as I walked out. As I walked past my father, he suddenly reached out, trying to stop me. But the officer shoved his arm aside. "You're now a suspect for unlawful imprisonment and intentional assault. Don't move." My father's hand froze in midair. The expression on his face was like he'd swallowed a fly, angry, scared, and completely helpless. I didn't even look at him. I just walked straight out that door. From behind me, I heard my mother start to wail. "Lin Feng, you can't treat us like this. We're your mother and father. For you to do this, how are we supposed to face anyone ever again?" I stopped in my tracks. "You all stopped treating me like a person a long time ago. Now it's your turn to get a taste of it." My mother was stunned, staring at me as if she'd never seen me before. Lin Xiaoxiao suddenly charged at me. "Lin Feng, you will regret this. I'm not letting you get away with this. Just you wait." I looked at her face and said calmly, "Lin Xiaoxiao, remember this. From this day forward, we are nothing to each other." Then I turned, got into the police car, and never looked back. By the time I finished my statement at the police station, it was already noon. Based on the video evidence and your injuries, your father is suspected of intentional assault and false imprisonment. He will be handled in accordance with the law. As for Lin Xiaoxiao, for destruction of another person's property, although the acceptance letter was issued by the school, it is considered your personal property. She will have to bear the corresponding legal responsibility as well. So what happens to my acceptance letter? Is it possible to get a replacement? The police said I had to contact the school and ask. They would help me get the relevant proof. I nodded, I said thank you, and when I walked out of the police station, the sunlight was blinding. I stood on the steps, squinting at the sky. It felt like I had just been in a very, very long nightmare. And now, I was finally awake. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I picked it up. A familiar voice came from the other end. "Xiao Feng, is that you? Are you okay? We saw the video." His voice was urgent, and I could hear other people talking in the background. It must have been all my roommates. "I'm fine. I've already reported it to the police." A cheer erupted from the other end of the line. Chen Xin's voice came through. "That's awesome, man. We were worried sick. Where are you now? Do you need us to come and get you?" I smiled. I said there was no need and hung up the phone. I stood where I was, thinking for a long time about what to do next. My ID card was taken by my father, and my acceptance letter was torn up by Lin Xiaoxiao. I was now penniless with nowhere to go. But I wasn't panicking at all, because the hardest step had already been taken. All that remained were some procedural issues. I could go to the school, explain the situation, and get a new acceptance letter. I could go to the police station to get a replacement ID. I could apply for a student loan to pay for tuition. All of these problems could be solved. The only thing that couldn't be solved was the poison of my original family. Now, I had cut that poison out with my own hands. I went to the police station and got a temporary ID. Then, with the little money I had left, I bought a train ticket to Bayonne. It was already evening when I boarded the train. The setting sun shone through the window, casting a glow on my seat. I leaned against the window, watching the scenery fly past outside. A sense of lightness and freedom I had never felt before washed over me. So this is what freedom feels like. I closed my eyes and fell asleep. For the first time in a long time, I had the most peaceful sleep. No nightmares, no waking up in a panic. Just a long, gentle darkness. When I woke up, the train had already arrived at the station. Bayonne Station. I dragged my simple luggage and walked off the platform. In front of me was an unfamiliar city, full of skyscrapers. It was completely different from that small, stifling town. There was an indescribable scent in the air. It was the scent of hope, of the future, of a new life. I found the cheapest hotel to stay in, and then started contacting the school to explain my situation. The teacher in the admissions office was shocked after hearing my story and said they would help me handle it as soon as possible. They told me not to worry. 3 days later, I received my new acceptance letter. The brand new red cover looked exactly the same as the last one, but its meaning was completely different. I held the acceptance letter to my chest, standing at the school gate. I looked up at the sign that read Bayonne University, and my eyes suddenly started to well up. For 12 years, ever since I could remember, I had been dumped in the countryside. I was ignored, given the cold shoulder, and treated as if I were invisible. I thought I was going to have to live in Lin Xiaoxiao's shadow for the rest of my life. I was supposed to be his stepping stone forever. But now, I'm standing here, by my own strength, standing at the gates of the country's most prestigious university. There are no longer people behind me, dragging me down. My life, from this moment on, truly belongs to me. On the first day of school, I met the roommates I'd gotten to know online. Lee San was very tall, with dark skin. You could tell he was a sports major. Chen Xin wore glasses, looking very scholarly. He got in through a competition. There was another one named Wang Mo. He didn't say much but seemed very reliable. The first thing they said when they saw me was, "Holy crap. You're that Lin Feng from the video. You're way more handsome in person than in the video." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "What do you mean, handsome? The wounds on my face haven't even healed yet." Chen Xin leaned in closer, took a close look at my face, and frowned. "You've still got bruises. They hit you pretty hard, huh?" Wang Mo didn't say anything, but he silently took a tube of ointment from his bag and handed it to me. "It's for the swelling." I took it, feeling a warmth in my heart as I said thanks. That night, the four of us sat in the dorm room and talked for a long time. They asked me for an update on that incident. "The police are still handling it. I don't know the specific outcome yet." "Killing your parents," Chen Xin sighed and said. "You've really had it rough." Wang Mo was still quiet, but he poured me a glass of water. Later, the topic gradually shifted. We talked about our majors and about student clubs, and our plans for the 4 years of college, all the normal things college students talk about. I suddenly realized, this is what a normal life is. This is what being 18 is supposed to be like. That night, I lay on my dorm bed, listening to the rising and falling snores of my roommates. Watching the moonlight outside the window, I thought of my grandpa. I remembered what he used to say, studying is the only way out for a poor kid. "Grandpa, I did it." I gave my grandpa a call. I told him I'd arrived at school and that everything was fine. On the other end of the line, he was so happy he didn't know what to say, just repeatedly muttering, "Good, good, good. You've made something of yourself." I didn't tell him about what had happened. I was afraid he'd worry. I just said the campus was very big, very beautiful, and that the food in the cafeteria was good too. He was so happy to hear it and told me to study hard. And not to worry about him, that he was in good health. After hanging up, I lay back down on my bed. I thought to myself, once I'm capable, I'll definitely bring Grandpa to live with me. I'll let him live a good life. It's what I owe him. He's also the only relative I want to repay. College life began to unfold in an orderly fashion. Military training, classes, clubs. It was busy and fulfilling. I threw myself into my studies, desperately entering all kinds of competitions. I wanted to prove myself, and I also wanted to make up for lost time. A month later, I received a notice from the police station. My father was sentenced to 3 months in detention for false imprisonment and assault, with a suspended sentence of 6 months. My mother, as an accomplice, was administratively detained for 15 days. Lin Xiaoxiao was fined and ordered to pay compensation for destroying another person's property. The sentences weren't harsh, but for them, it was more than enough. Because that video completely destroyed their reputations, my father lost his job. When my mother went out, the neighbors would point and whisper, and she couldn't hold her head high. As for Lin Xiaoxiao, her name had become a laughingstock online. The number 751, on top of tearing up her own brother's acceptance letter. Those two things were enough to make her socially dead for life. I heard she developed mental health problems later and was sent to see a psychologist. I don't know the specific details. They tried to contact me, through both calls and texts. It was always the same, begging for my forgiveness, asking me to drop the charges, begging me to delete the video. I ignored it all. Eventually, I guess they gave up. I never heard from them again. That past is like a drawer I've locked away. I have no intention of opening it again. The days passed, one by one. Freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. My grades were consistently in the top 3 of my major, and I won scholarships. I joined the party and even published 2 papers. Everyone said Lin Feng had a limitless future. I would smile and be humble, but I knew the truth. I had paid for these achievements with my life. Every single late night, every moment of exhaustion, was all to get a little further away from that cesspool. During the summer break of my junior year, I went back to my hometown to see my grandpa. He had aged so much. His back was more hunched, and his hair had turned completely white. But he was in good spirits. When he saw me, he was as happy as a child. I sat with him in the courtyard, just like when I was little. He peeled peanuts for me, and I told him about things at school. The sunlight was warm, and the shadow of the acacia tree spread across the ground. Grandpa suddenly asked me, "Do you still have any contact with your parents?" No. He was silent for a moment. He sighed. "They are your parents, after all. No matter how poorly they acted, they're still the ones who gave you life." "Grandpa, I know what you mean. But some things can't be forgiven just by deciding to. They hurt me too deeply." Grandpa didn't say any more. Grandpa won't force you. As long as you have your own thoughts, that's fine. As long as you're living well. Grandpa is content. That night, I lay on the old earthen bed in the old house, just like when I was a child. But my state of mind was completely different. The chirping of insects outside was still so loud. Yet I felt exceptionally at peace. This was my only home. Grandpa was my only family. Those other people had been dead to me for a long time. In my senior year, I was accepted into a postgraduate program at a top university. I would continue to study for my master's degree in Bayan. At the same time, I also received internship offers from several well-known companies. Everything was moving in the right direction. On graduation day, I stood at the school gate in my bachelor's gown. I had my roommate take a picture of me, with the plaque that said Bayan University in the background. It was exactly the same as when I first stood here 4 years ago. But I was no longer that scarred and broken boy from 4 years back. I had grown taller, stronger, and the gloom in my eyes had been replaced by confidence. Those scars were still there, but they had healed over. They no longer bled, they just reminded me of the path I had walked. Li Sang put his arm around my shoulder. "Xiao Feng, what are your plans for the future?" "First, grad school, then work. And I'll bring my grandpa over to live with me." "That sounds great. I'll treat you guys to meals in the future." "No problem." That day, the 4 of us roommates drank a lot, and talked a lot about the past and the future. In the end, we all passed out drunk in the dorm. When we woke up the next day, our heads were killing us, but our hearts were full. Our youth had passed just like that. 4 years of university life had come to an end. Next up was a new journey. During my master's degree, I was even busier. Academics, projects, internships. There was barely any time to breathe. But I enjoyed it, because every busy day took me one step further away from the person I used to be. In the winter of my second year of grad school, Grandpa passed away. It happened in his sleep. He went very peacefully. There was no pain. When the people from the village called to tell me, I was in the lab doing an experiment. The moment I heard the news, the test tube in my hand fell to the floor and shattered. I asked for a leave of absence, and rushed back to my old hometown overnight. I pushed open the door of the old house, and saw a coffin in the main hall. Grandpa was lying inside. He was wearing the navy blue cotton jacket I had bought for him, with a faint smile on his face. I knelt before the coffin. I didn't cry out loud, but the tears just wouldn't stop streaming down my face. The elders called it a joyous passing. They said Grandpa lived past 80, and that his children and grandchildren were successful. To pass away so peacefully meant he was a fortunate man. But I didn't want any joyous passing. I just wanted him to be with me for a few more years. To wait until I had a job, until I was making money. I wanted to bring him to the city to live in a big house and eat delicious food. I hadn't had the chance to do anything for him yet. How could he just leave? It was snowing on the day of the funeral. With my own hands, I took Grandpa's ashes and buried them on the hillside behind the old house. From there, you could see the entire village. You could also see that old locust tree. I stood before his grave for a long, long time, until the snow had turned my shoulders white. Grandpa, you just wait. I will make something of myself. I'll make you proud from up in heaven. The wind carried my words away, but I knew. He must have heard them. After handling Grandpa's funeral affairs, I returned to school, burying all my grief deep in my heart. I threw myself even more desperately into my studies and work. I had to succeed. I had to make a name for myself. This was my promise to my grandpa. It was also a way to answer to myself. In my third year of grad school, I graduated with honors and received offers from several top companies. In the end, I chose a tech giant with a starting salary of $500,000 a year. For a kid from the countryside, this was a number I never even dared to dream of. On my first day of work, I stood beneath that magnificent office building. I looked up at the blue sky and thought, Grandpa, I made it. After I started working, I rented a clean and tidy one-bedroom apartment. It wasn't big, but it was my own little nest. I placed Grandpa's photo on my desk and would look at it every day before leaving. I'd say good morning to him, and when I came back at night, I'd tell him what happened that day. Life was lonely, but it felt secure. 3 years later, I bought a house in Bayonne with a 30-year mortgage. The monthly payment was a little over $10,000, so the pressure was immense. But I could handle it. The house wasn't big, just 2 bedrooms and a living room, but for me, it was more than enough. The day I moved into my new home, I stood by the window, watching the bustling streets below, and I suddenly remembered many years ago. That young boy locked in the storage room. That boy would never have dreamed that one day he would have his own house in this city, have a respectable job, and have a few true friends. That he would have a brand new life. Fate dealt me the worst possible hand, but I fought hard and turned it into a winning one. That night, I had a few drinks by myself and said to Grandpa's photo, Grandpa, you were right. Education really is the only way out for a poor kid. I made it out. The moonlight outside the window was very bright. Just as bright as it was on that summer night many years ago, the night Grandpa told me stories under the old locust tree. It felt like only yesterday. Life went on peacefully like that. Work was going well, and I'd occasionally get together with my old roommates. Life was simple but fulfilling. Until that day, the peace was shattered. It was a weekend during my 4th year of work. I was at home reading when my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I hesitated for a moment, but I answered it anyway. On the other end was an old and unfamiliar female voice. Are you Lin Feng? I am. May I ask who this is? There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then, she said something that sent a shock through my entire body. I'm your grandmother. The word grandmother was so foreign to me, so unfamiliar that I had almost forgotten that I even had a relative called grandmother. Xiao Feng, can you come to the hospital? Your mother, she's not going to make it. I was silent for a long time. I didn't say a word. My mind was a complete blank. My grandmother's voice was choked with sobs. Xiao Feng, your mother, she. I know they wronged you, but she's still your mother. She's on her last breath. She wants to see you one last time. What's wrong with her? Late-stage liver cancer. By the time they found it, it had already spread. The doctor said she only has a few days left. I leaned back on the sofa, staring at the ceiling. I didn't know what to say. It's been 7 years. Ever since that incident, I haven't seen them. Not a single phone call, not a single text message. Thought our paths would never cross again. I never expected this to be the reason for our reunion. Grandma waited on the other end of the line. I could hear her suppressed sobs. Just send me the address. Then I hung up. I sat on the sofa for a long time, my mind a mess as so many things came flooding back. The days I was locked in my room, the nights I was beaten and yelled at. That acceptance letter she tore to shreds. Those wounds had scarred over long ago. But right now, they're starting to ache again. Should I go? The question tormented me all day. In the end, I decided to go. It wasn't about forgiveness, I just wanted to put an end to this chapter of my past. The next day, I took time off work and drove to the hospital. It was a municipal hospital. I found the room using the address Grandma sent me. The moment I pushed the door open, I saw my mother lying in the hospital bed. She was so thin she was almost unrecognizable, her face a waxy yellow. Just skin and bones. Her hair was thin and streaked with gray. She looked like a completely different person from the sharp-tongued, cruel woman of 7 years ago. When Grandma saw me, she quickly stood up. She grabbed my hand. "Xiao Feng, you're here. I'm so glad you came. She's been asking for you non-stop." I didn't say anything, just stood by the side of the bed. Looking down at the dying woman on the bed, my mother opened her eyes. Her cloudy gaze landed on my face. Her lips trembled, faint voice escaped her, "Xiao Feng." Tears suddenly welled up in her eyes, streaming down her withered cheeks. She tried to lift her hand, but had no strength. She just trembled. "You came, you were willing to come see me." I didn't answer, just stood there. My heart was surprisingly calm. There was no hatred, no sadness either, just an indescribable numbness. My mother spoke in short, broken sentences, her voice sounding as if it were being squeezed from her throat. "Xiao Feng, Mom is so sorry. All these years, Mom has wanted to find you, to tell you I'm sorry." But, Mom was too ashamed. She coughed a few times. Grandma hurried over to pat her on the back. I just stood to the side and watched. I still didn't move. It took my mother a long time to catch her breath. She continued, "Mom has done so many things wrong in her life. And the person I've wronged the most is you. I always favored your little sister, ever since you were kids. Leaving you in the countryside all alone. Mom isn't even human. Don't say any more." The more she spoke, the more agitated she became. But Mother, as if using the last of her strength, stared right at me. Her eyes were filled with pleading and despair. "Zhao Feng, can you forgive me? I know I don't deserve it, but I just want to hear you call me Mom one last time before I die." The room was eerily quiet, with only the rhythmic beeping of the monitor. I looked at her, at the woman who gave birth to me, but had never loved me. Seeing how withered she looked now, a wave of complex emotions suddenly washed over me. Hate, the nights I spent locked in the utility closet, the days I was treated like I was invisible, the moment she personally tore my dreams to shreds. Every single scene was etched into my bones. But standing here now, looking at this woman on the verge of death, I realized that all that hatred had faded long ago. It wasn't forgiveness, I just didn't care anymore. I finally spoke, my voice calm. "I don't hate you anymore." My mother froze. "But I can't forgive you either," I continued. "You asked if I could call you Mom. I can't. In all these years, there's never been a place in my heart for a mother. Only Grandpa." My mother's body began to shake violently. It was as if the last shred of her strength had been ripped away. She opened her mouth, trying to say something, but only a broken whimper escaped. Beside her, my grandmother grew anxious. She grabbed my hand and said, "Zhao Feng, just call her that once, so she can go in peace." I shook my head and turned to leave. As I reached the door, I heard my mother's hoarse cry from behind me. "Zhao Feng, I was wrong. I was really wrong." I stopped in my tracks. I didn't turn around. I just stood there for a few seconds. Then, I pushed the door open and left. The hallway was silent. I leaned against the wall, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. My heart was pounding, but I didn't regret it. I sat on a bench outside the hospital for a long time and smoked half a pack of cigarettes. I watched people come and go. Some walked in crying, and others walked out smiling. Birth, aging, sickness, and death. That's just how it is. My phone rang. It was my grandmother. I hesitated for a moment, but I answered anyway. My grandmother's voice sounded exhausted. "Zhao Feng, please don't be mad at me for calling you here. Your mother, she really doesn't have much time left. I know what they did before was wrong, but she truly is full of regret. She's been talking about you constantly these past few years." I remained silent. "You know, your mother's illness, it's connected to what's been weighing on her mind. After what happened all those years ago, she never had another peaceful night's sleep. Your father lost his job and spent all day drinking to drown his sorrows. After that, they fought about getting a divorce every single day. And your sister, well, basically, the family just completely fell apart." "What happened to Lin Xiaoxiao?" I asked. My grandmother was silent for a moment. "Don't even talk about it. That girl's life is ruined. What happened back then caused such a huge scandal. She was traumatized by it all, and it just kept getting worse and worse. She's in a psychiatric hospital now, with good days and bad days. Didn't feel anything when I heard that. I can't say I felt vindicated. I can't say I felt sorry for her, either. I just thought it was karma. Nothing more. Xiao Feng, I know you resent her. But your mom really doesn't have much time left. Can't you just go see her? Grandma, I went. I saw her. That's all I can do. On the other end of the line, Grandma started to cry. Oh, you child, how can your heart be so hard? It's not that my heart is hard. It's that they shattered it long ago. You should ask them how they treated me back then. Grandma went silent. After a long moment, she sighed. All right, Grandma won't force you. You have your own life. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters. After hanging up, I sat on the bench for a while longer. Then I got up and drove home. 3 days later, Grandma called again. She told me my mother had passed away. When she died, she was still murmuring my name. After she finished, I just said I see, and asked when the funeral would be. Grandma said it was the day after tomorrow. I told her, I'll be there. After I hung up the phone, I stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. I couldn't quite describe the feeling in my heart. There was a slight tightness, but mostly, it was relief. The woman who gave birth to me was dead, but I felt no grief for a mother's passing, only a sense that the dust had finally settled. Like a book that had finally reached its last page. No matter how awful the story was, at least it was over. On the day of the funeral, I went. Standing in the crowd, I looked at my mother's memorial portrait. She looked the same as she did 7 years ago. That was before she got sick. She wore a cruel smile on her face. Not many people came, just a few distant relatives. Grandma and Grandpa, and one other person I never expected to see. My father. He had aged so much. His hair was graying, and his back was hunched. His whole body seemed to have shrunk. Standing there in the mourning hall, wearing sackcloth, his expression was numb. When he saw me, his eyes flickered. It was as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he said nothing at all. He just lowered his head and continued burning joss paper. I paid him no mind either. I just followed the rites, offered incense, bowed, and then stood off in a corner. Xiao Feng, it's good that you came. Your mother's spirit can finally rest in peace now. I just hummed in acknowledgement and said nothing more. After the funeral service, the guests gradually dispersed. Only a few close family members were left in the hall. My father was still kneeling there, burning joss paper. The flames illuminated his old, weary face. I stared at his back. He suddenly felt like a stranger. This was my father, the man who was once so high and mighty. The man who used to beat and kick me. The man who locked me in my room. And now he was kneeling here. Like a stray dog, he probably felt my gaze. He turned back to look at me. His eyes were red-rimmed. His lips moved. Xiao Feng. I didn't answer. I just watched him quietly. He stood up and walked towards me. His steps were a little unsteady. When he stood in front of me, I realized he smelled of alcohol. Xiao Feng. Dad is so sorry. All these years, Dad has wanted to find you, to apologize to you. But Dad was too ashamed. Your mother, she's gone. Dad doesn't have many years left in this life. Can you forgive me? I looked at him, at the man I once hated with every fiber of my being. Now, he stood before me, as pathetic as a stray dog. I finally spoke, my voice calm. You know, when I was a child, there was something I could never understand. Why did other parents love and cherish their children, while my own parents treated me like a burden? Eventually, I figured it out. It wasn't that I was a bad kid. It's that you were unfit to be parents. My father's face twitched, as if he'd been brutally slapped. You ask if I can forgive you. My answer is the same one I gave her. I don't hate you anymore, but I will never forgive you. Not in this lifetime. My father froze. Tears streamed down his face. He reached out to grab my arm, but I pulled away, and from now on, we have no relationship whatsoever. You live your life, and I'll live mine. Our lives, our sickness, our deaths, they will have nothing to do with each other. This is the last time I will ever see you. After saying that, I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear my father's wails, and my grandmother's calls, but I turned a deaf ear to it all. Step by step, I walked out of the memorial hall, out of that suffocating place. After getting in the car, I started the engine, and drove onto the highway back to Bayon. The night was dark. There weren't many cars on the road. As I drove, my mind raced with so many thoughts. Abandoned in the countryside for 12 years. Treated like I was invisible for 6 years. Locked in my room at the age of 18. My admission letter torn to shreds by my own sister. These memories played back in my mind like a movie. At 29 years old, here I am in this city. I have a house, a car, a career. I've built a life I never dared to dream of. And them? My father lost his job. He's destitute. My mother died of despair. Lin Xiaoxiao went insane. This family that once wanted to crush me under their feet has completely fallen apart. Dubao AI generated. This isn't my revenge. Dubao AI generated. This is their own karma. Dubao AI generated. Halfway there, I pulled over at a rest stop. Standing in the night wind, I looked up at the starry sky. Suddenly, I thought of my grandfather. I remembered him telling me stories under the old pagoda tree. I remembered what he used to say, for a poor kid, education is the only way out. Grandpa, I made it out. I've become the person you hoped I would be. My eyes started to well up, but I didn't let the tears fall. I just took a deep breath, got in the car, and kept driving. At 3 a.m., I got home. Lying in bed, I watched as the sky outside my window slowly started to brighten. I felt a sense of relief I had never felt before. All those grudges and complicated feelings. All those tangled webs of love and hate, from now on, they had nothing to do with me. I could finally, truly let go of the past and start a new life. After the new year, I got a promotion and became the youngest manager in my department. My salary doubled, and that same year, I met a girl. Her name was Xiao Wanner, a designer from the department next door. She was very beautiful. When she smiled, her eyes curved like little crescent moons. We met because of a project we were working on together, and after a while, we became close. She knew about my past, about all those things I couldn't bear to look back on. But she didn't look at me strangely. She just listened to everything seriously. Then she said something to me. None of that was your fault. You've already done so well. In that moment, a corner of my heart felt like it had been filled. We started dating. We dated, moved in together, and then I proposed. The day I proposed, I took her to my hometown. We went to my grandpa's grave. I knelt down in front of it, and I introduced her to him. Grandpa, this is my girlfriend. Her name is Xiao Wanner, and she's a wonderful person. I want to marry her. Xiao Wanner was standing right beside me. Her eyes were red as she knelt down too. She bowed 3 times to my grandpa. The wind was very strong that day. It made the wild grass in front of the grave rustle. I felt like it was my grandpa answering me. Like he was saying, good, good, good. My grandson has made something of himself. When I was 32, we got married. It wasn't a big wedding. We only invited a few of our closest family and friends. My old roommates all came, and Lee Sang was even my best man. He drank a little too much at the wedding, put his arm around my shoulder, and said, Lin Feng, I'm so happy for you. You've finally made it, man. I smiled and said, yeah, I've finally made it. A year later, Xiao Wanner got pregnant. 10 months later, our daughter was born. I named her Lin Cece. The C in her name means to miss someone, in memory of my grandpa. The moment I held my daughter in my arms, I just started crying. It was a feeling I hadn't experienced in over 30 years. So this is what it feels like to be connected by blood. This is what it feels like to be needed. This is what a home is. I looked at the little one in my arms and thought to myself, I will be a good father. I will never let her go through anything that I went through. I'll give her the best love and the best protection. I'll let her grow up in the sunlight, never knowing that such darkness even exists in this world. Lying in her hospital bed, Xiao Wanner asked, what are you thinking about? I'm thinking that the luckiest thing in my entire life was surviving all those hard days. And then I met you. She reached out and held my hand. Me too. Outside the window, the sun was shining right on our family of 3, warm and bright. In that moment, I suddenly felt that all the past suffering had been worth it. Because they made me who I am today. They taught me to cherish everything, and led me to meet the person I was meant to meet, allowing me to have this home of my own. What fate owed me, I've taken back myself. And I got even more. Never give up on yourself. Because you never know what kind of scenery is waiting for you after you make it through.